I'm Grant Boone. The 2011 ACU football season began with a bang, a comeback 27-24 win Thursday night over Tarleton State.
And I'm Austin Gwynn. We'll take a look at those highlights and also preview the Wildcat volleyball season. It's the Chris Thomsen Show right now.
Welcome to week 2 of the Chris Thomsen Show. Grant Boone here along with senior broadcast journalism major Austin Gwynn and the head football coach at ACU, Chris Thomsen. This is our version of the hurry-up offense. We are just a few hours after ACU's thrilling season opening and conference opening victory over Tarleton State in Stephenville last night. 27-24 was the final. The Wildcats scored with 1:09 to play to take a 3-point lead and then preserved that 3-point win with a goal line stand, a goal line interception, in fact. Coach, it's only been a few hours. The gun from the final gun is still smoking, I think, in Stephenville. What are your very early reflections on a very white-knuckle win?
Yeah, you know, first thing jumps to mind is just some great performances, great character by some guys like Ben Gibbs and Darian Hogg and Mitchell Gale. Harkless and then Ryan Smith, Nate Bailey, some of those guys, just watching how many plays were made last night, and then Tarleton made some incredible plays. So it was a typical game. You know, said that before the game, that going down there it's always like that, and that's kind of what I expected. I got a little bit more than what I expected last night, and then you know, a lot of mistakes too. A very ragged game on our part. Very fortunate to get the win.
And last year it was 65-3. I mean, 62-point victory was never close, never in doubt. This year, I mean, it came down to the final minute. How were you expecting it to be so close of a game after last year's drubbing?
Yeah, I mean, I knew, you know, they didn't have their quarterback last year, and they had several other people hurt. And when you lose a quarterback, that's devastating on your team. That can be pretty devastating. And so you throw in all the other people they lost. I knew last year you just kind of throw that game out of the rivalry because and then, you know, I know Kerry a little bit personally. We go back and they've been pointing to that game since January when they got back to school, and I knew they'd come play hard, and you know, we didn't help our cause a lot of the times, and you throw all those factors in. I kind of expected something like that, but it was a little bit more than what I thought.
Yeah, we'll take a look at what happened. We'll see the highlights and break it down next. This is the Chris Thomsen Show.
ACU taking on Tarleton State in Stephenville at Memorial Stadium. Aston Whiteside getting his team pumped up for the start of the 2011 season. Whiteside is a preseason LSU Defensive Player of the Year and an All-American. Played a huge role in this game. QB Mitchell Gale and the Cats started 2011 the way they left off 2010. Gale was effective and efficient on his first drive as he found tight end Ben Gibbs to get inside the 5, and then on a bootleg on third down finds fullback Daniel Talavera. His first play as a Wildcat goes for a touchdown. TSU quarterback Nick Stevens quickly silenced those that said this might be a blowout like last year as he finds wide receiver Lance Clark there inside the 5. That set up a touchdown carry for Brandon Lowry, his first of 3 on the night. Now, a special teams unit let ACU down throughout the game as Lowry almost breaks away for a touchdown before being tripped up. Wasn't too much later, though, that Stevens struck again, this time with a screen pass to Lowry to give the Texans a 14-10 first half lead. Now, like I said before, the special teams was not a high point for Chris Thomsen's bunch as Stephen Covey attempts a 55-yard field goal into the wind. Didn't even get to the end zone, though, as Tad Hill will return this one back into ACU territory, breaking a few tackles, dancing a jig down there to the ACU 35-yard line. Clock winding down now in the first half, and the Texans trying to add to their lead, but Steven throws it right into the waiting arms of ACU lineman Derek Drummond. That preserved a 4-point deficit for the Cats going into the locker room. Disappointing start to the season, though, as they're down 14-10. Second half now, and finally the Wildcat offense shows some flash as Gale hits Sharkandrick West on a bubble screen. West makes a move, sprints 41 yards to pay dirt, almost back to Abilene as he runs out the back of the end zone. ACU takes a 14-17 lead. Tarleton was quick to answer, though, as they took it right back down the field. Lowry plunges ahead into the end zone, giving the Texans back a 21-17 advantage. Now, this was not Mitchell Gale's best night, as he got picked off twice, here by Deshaun Phillips, stopping a promising ACU drive inside Tarleton territory. After the two sides trade field goals, Gale finally finds his rhythm. With about 2 minutes to go, he hits receiver Darian Hogg for a 37-yard gain. A couple of plays later, he's going to find Taylor Gabriel for another 16 yards into Tarleton territory. Gabriel with a nice diving catch. Okay, third down now. Gale is scrambling around, trying to find a receiver, and just shovels it off to running back Daryl Richardson. Richardson does the rest as he makes a move and goes into the end zone for the go-ahead touchdown. ACU takes a 27-24 lead. Richardson did not get a lot of playing time as he was playing with a strained hamstring, but no score more important than that one to go ahead. Now, for those of you that thought it was over, you were wrong. More to this thrilling finish. 8 seconds left. Tarleton has a chance to go ahead, but Nick Stevens throws it into the waiting arms of Nate Bailey, who goes down at the 2-yard line. It doesn't matter. Ball game's over. The players are excited. Coach T is excited as he jumps into the arms of Bailey. Wildcats win 27-24, go to 1-0 in the year, 1-0 in the Lone Star Conference.
Nice jump into Nate Bailey's arms there, Coach. He deserved it. Two good catches, one of the ball and then one of you there from Nate. So you warned anyone last week on the show and all of this week leading up to it, you warned anyone who would listen that you need to throw out the 65-3 win over Tarleton State last year. So in the words of Dennis Green, was Tarleton who you thought they were when you played them last night and what you saw from them?
Yeah, they were. I mean, Nick Stevens, I watched him in game one last year against Northeastern State, just complete pass after pass after pass. And Lee Hayes, the offensive coordinator, we know does a great job. He was at West Texas, ran the same offense, and what a great job by him getting those guys ready to function at a high level in the first game. And they're always going to have athletes. They had great athletes on defense. And you know, we keep up with recruiting and who each other signs and stuff like that. And you see the guys that they signed, and you knew they were going to come and play a great game. And all the comments they made about, you know, pointing to this game all off season, all spring, all summer, and all that added up to a great battle.
You know, really, Kerry Fowler in his second season was looking for a signature win. They went 3-8 last year, so disappointing, and this one obviously went down to the wire. Let's start at the very beginning. You told me before the game that you said, let's just play. We're ready to play. If we had another week of practice, I'm not sure how much more we could accomplish. I don't know that you could have started much better than you started, both in the kicking game. You get a touchback on Spencer Covey's very first kick of the season. You get a 3-and-out with 2 sacks, and then you get a touchdown on your very first offensive drive. It looked at that point pretty promising, didn't it?
Yeah, and Sharkandrick West actually got his hand on that
did.
first punt, and just great field position was set up with that, and you know, got off to a great start. But again, I knew those guys would come back and respond. And Nick Stevens is a great quarterback. They'll get those signature wins this year because of him and because of what those guys are doing on defense. And very athletic in the secondary. You know, they have some great players there, some guys that we looked at and tried to recruit. And so I think they'll get some big wins and as they progress throughout the year.
So as good of a start as it was, you did score an opening touchdown. It took you, though, 9 plays to go 35 yards, and that really would kind of portend what was going to happen later in the game. Not a lot of quick strike, plays for your team, and in that opening drive we saw a couple of penalties. I know penalties were a huge frustration for you in the entire game, and maybe just a word about an opening game. And I know you're not going to use it as an excuse, but there's a lot of choreography that goes on with substitution patterns and new guys getting in there. That seemed a bit ragged.
Oh yeah, it was, and I think first game for both sides. I think both sides have that challenge in the first ball game, and so you know I think you know we're going to have to be an offense that operates efficiently. We don't have quite the big play capability like we had with Edmond and Raymond and those guys last year, but we'll have to be more efficient. That's why you get an 8-play, 35-yard drive. We've got some guys that have some explosive ability, and those guys are going to have to continue to get better and improve. But we're going to have to operate real efficiently on offense. And when you have penalties, you just can't do that. We just continually had setbacks last night that cost us.
You had 430 yards of total offense, which may surprise some people as often as it looked like your team struggled offensively, a testament to how good this team has become. And Mitchell, a night that I would say he would look back on and say he missed some throws. He still goes 26 of 49, throws for 335 and 3 touchdowns. Quickly, your defense. Ryan Smith on the defensive front. Derek Drummond transfer from Maryland, and then Nate Bailey. And Aston Whiteside is not going to have huge stat numbers, but he occupied a lot of space last night.
Yeah, he did. He was very disruptive. Only had 1 sack on the sheet, but he was very disruptive and got the quarterback off the spot a lot of times, which helped some other guys get some sacks. So I was just proud of our defense for hanging in there and fighting and making one last play. And we got to get some coverage stuff cleaned up with the linebackers. We got a new linebacking core, and Nick Stevens was able to expose those guys in the middle of the field some and in the flat. And a lot of good things we can teach off of. We're very fortunate to be able to win and learn some hard lessons instead of lose. But good first night, and we got to make a lot of progress before we go play North Alabama.
Thursday was 4 years to the day since your last loss in the month of September. That came against Central Oklahoma back in 2007. There is something to be said about finding a way to win, I know, and your team did it on Thursday night. 27-24 the final, ACU over Tarleton State, now 1-0 on the season, and most important, 1-0 in the Lone Star Conference. When we come back, more of the Chris Thomsen Show. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, Austin.
Coach Mock and her Wildcat volleyball team begin their season ranked 23rd nationally based on the American Volleyball Coaches Association preseason poll. Returning starters for the 2011 team include libero Kelsey Edwards and the Lone Star Conference Freshman of the Year, middle hitter Neely Borger. Graduated setter E.J. Moronu returns this year as a student assistant to the team after an outstanding 4 seasons playing for the Wildcats. The team heads to Kingsville this Tuesday for their first Lone Star Conference matchup and their first home game September 13th against Incarnate Word.
ACU's Purple and White made its first ever appearance in a NASCAR event thanks to alumnus Randy Hill. The 1990 graduate wanted to wrap his car in purple for his team's debut in NASCAR Nationwide Series racing. Hill made ACU his team sponsor for the August 13th race. The ACU logo stood on the hood of number 39's Racing Ford Mustang. Now thousands of NASCAR viewers know about the Wildcat Nation.
Next Saturday in Waco, the student-run men's soccer club season officially kicks off with their season opener against the Baylor Bears. Based on last year's season, the team is currently ranked 3rd in the Lone Star North Conference. According to the Texas Collegiate Soccer League, the Lone Star North Conference is ranked 2nd in the state. Other schools competing in this conference include TCU and the University of Texas. With only 1 senior, this year's team has the youngest roster yet. President Jordan Abshire leads the team with Vice Presidents Chase Martin and Colton McInturf by his side. Be there for their first home game of the season on Sunday, September 18th.
According to the preseason poll announced in late July, ACU's defending Lone Star Conference champion cross-country team was picked as the favorite to win the 2011
With a look at other
LSC
ACU sports news going on around
Wildcat
campus,
cross-country
here's Taylor
teams are
Langston
also
and Kristen
ranked 9th
Goodspeed
and
with the
10th
JMC Network
based on the
Sportscast.
NCAA Division II South Central Regional preseason rankings. Last year, the Wildcats wrapped up their 20th consecutive conference title and were 20th nationally, with Amos Sang leading the way. Sang will be back, as well as veterans Will Pike and Jake Schofield. Wildcat juniors Chloe Sassette and Elise Goldsmith will lead the women's team.
Thanks for joining us for this edition of the JMC Network Sportscast. I'm Taylor Langston.
And I'm Kristen Goodspeed. See you next time.
Last year, ACU's volleyball team went 27-6, went farther than they have in the last 5 seasons, making it to the second round of the NCAA tournament. And with me to talk about last year's team and this year's team is head coach Kellen Mock. Coach, how are you?
Doing well, thank you.
You had an unbelievably successful season last season. I mean, 27 wins, only 6 losses, 13-1 in the conference. What can you guys do to build on that?
Well, it's hard to build on it. What we need to do this year is maintain that level of success. We've got several returners that have quite a bit of experience under their belt, and we're excited to see what they're going to do. And then there's a new crop of freshmen that are kind of mixing things up in our gym right now, and we're really looking forward to the future we have with those girls.
And you guys lost a large chunk of the impact players on your team from last year. Setter E.J. Moronu, Jordan Schilling, Shauna Hines. Are they replaceable?
You know, I don't know that we're going to have another player come through that plays the same way as Shauna or E.J. or Jordan. Every player has their own unique spin on how they approach the game, and I loved every minute with those 3 girls. I was very sad to see them go. But we do have a lot of great talent coming up. Neely Borger's done a great job stepping in the middle and becoming kind of a leader. Whitney Stevens is a redshirt freshman on the team, and she's been stepping up quite a bit in practice to help fill that void in the middle that Shauna left behind, as well as one of our freshmen, Sarah Oxford. So all 3 of those girls are making a big statement in the middle, and I think between the 3 of them, we're going to end up with a solid group that can hopefully take a little bit of that place of what Shauna left behind. EJ's position's hard to replace. Just like a football quarterback, our volleyball setter, she's got a lot of control over what happens in the game. And we've got 2 right now, Kaylee Johnson and Haley Rhodes, and between the 2 of them, we may be running a 6-2, we may be running a 5-1, so it might look totally different than you've seen AC volleyball the last few years.
Now, last year's team was very successful, but it was a more experienced team. This year, you've got 7 freshmen, 2 red shirts, 5 new girls coming in. Is it different coaching such a young team as far as this year, when last year you had such an experienced team?
Well, the thing is, with this year's group, we really have to focus on the fundamentals. We have to focus on what makes you a successful volleyball team, whether you're wearing ACU purple or not. Some of those basics are the same, and so we've spent a lot of time this 2-a-days really pounding in kind of the fundamentals of what we want our program to look like. So going into this first weekend, it's not all about expectations or goals, quite the same as it has been in the past. We're going in trying to play cleanly, play as a unit, and pull out some wins.
And a couple of girls you haven't mentioned yet, but might step up and become leaders are Jenny Hutt and Kelsey Edwards, 2 of the more experienced girls on your team. What do they bring to the table as far as leadership goes? Well,
this past week, they were both voted as our team captains, and I think that's very indicative of the leadership that they bring to the team. Right now, Jenny's kind of captaining and leading our offense, while Kelsey's doing the same thing on the defensive end of the ball. So between the 2 of them, we have quite a bit of leadership on every aspect of our game. So I'm excited to see what the 2 of them will do this year.
All right, that's Coach Kellen Mock talking ACU volleyball. They will be on the road 16 out of 30 days in September, but look forward to seeing them more at home later on in the season. We'll be right back with the Chris Thomsen Show.
Welcome back to the Chris Thomsen Show. Our final segment is usually devoted to previewing that day's game, but with an off week, a much needed one, I think. Let's talk a little bit, Coach, about, and Austin, about this amazing run of former ACU players in the NFL. 6 former players of yours are in NFL training camps, and let's start with some really disappointing news that we found out on Thursday night. Raymond Radway, with 3 seconds to go in the game against his former teammate Clyde Gates and the Miami Dolphins, trying to make the Dallas Cowboys as an undrafted free agent, was injured, had some type of a leg injury at the end of the game. 3 seconds to go in the game. You had a chance to speak with Raymond's agent early this morning. Chris, what did you find out, and how devastating is that?
Well, he suffered a broken leg, and you know, like you said, 3 seconds away from probably making the 53-man roster. So just really disappointing for him. But Raymond's a tough kid. I mean, that was kind of his trademark here, and I know he'll rehab, and they'll keep him on injured reserve, so he, you know, he stays with the team and gets a salary. And so I really expect him to battle back and rehab and come back and play. Not this year, I don't think, but I think he showed enough that Dallas will be, you know, anticipating a big future with him.
It's amazing to think, Austin and Coach, that on that field where he gets hurt, his former teammate who lined up on the other side of the offensive line from him, Clyde Gates, was in the other on the other team, on the other sideline, and the man who coached them for several years, Brock Sherwood, was at the game last night, Thursday night. It was such a disappointment. And I want to go back to something that Ken Collins told me on Wednesday of this week when I was talking to him about Raymond and this amazing run. Undrafted free agents rarely make NFL teams. It's a huge long shot, and yet Raymond was on the verge there. And Ken just shook his head and he said, you know, that guy is so tough. He said he never takes a play off. He'll block downfield on a running play, and and Ken just really, you could see this pride, this look in Ken's eyes saying, he's so tough and has so much heart, and you saw that, I know, as well.
Yeah, he in Dallas recognized that real quickly. You know, they throw all those free agents in the mix, but guys with that type of work ethic start to stand out. And Stephen McGee was working with him a lot with the third team and second team in training camp, the former A&M quarterback. And, you know, all his comments in the paper talked about how tough he was, how hard a worker he was, and what a great kid he was to be around. So I think Raymond will bounce back. Of all the guys that you know, could be in that situation, I think he'll bounce back. And, you know, our prayers are with him, and we're excited for his future, and I think if he keeps progressing, he'll do well. Raymond scored a touchdown. He's not the only one who's found the end zone so far this year.
All 4 offensive players of ours have scored in this preseason. How big is that for our program on a national scale that 4 guys can come in and make an impact on their respective offenses?
Well, it's big from the standpoint of, you know, it seems like every time they score, they say something about Abilene Christian. So players that are watching those games and that are in, you know, looking for a place to play, we get calls from guys and we'll say, how'd you hear about ACU? And typically they've, you know, from the guys that are nationwide, guys out of state, they'll say, hey, we were watching the game and we saw Bernard Scott or we saw Johnny Knox and so on. So that does help. I already had somebody stop me this morning and, hey, Johnny scored. And, you know, so I think it helps bring notoriety to the university, just getting the Abilene Christian name out there.
Daniel Manning is now with the Houston Texans playing safety. A lot of guys like the Texans to win that AFC South, and he's one of the reasons. Jonathan Joseph came over as a corner from Cincinnati to Houston. You've got Manning now there as the safety, and they were the worst pass defense in the league last year, and a lot of people like the Texans. Now, one last quick thing here. We talk about Travis Turner, offensive lineman of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Training camp still is on the roster as of now after the first round of cuts. Obviously, Bernard and Johnny Knox, and we mentioned Clyde Gates with the Dolphins. But Knox has been really impressive, I think, in handling a tough situation. He was demoted when Roy Williams was brought in as a starting receiver. Immediately made a starter over Johnny. Johnny, not surprisingly, I don't think, to you either, right, that he would just keep his head down and keep working.
Well, yeah, and he was really frustrated at first. It really surprised him, I think, and you know, because he was the Bears' leading receiver last year, so he didn't expect that or anticipate that. But you know, the coaches talked to him and said, you know, you were the leading receiver last year, but you were very inconsistent in some ways, and so they really wanted him to step up. And after the initial disappointment, a little bit of shock there, he really has, I mean, in typical Johnny Knox fashion, just go to work, you know. And I've talked to him a couple of times, and you know, his attitude's really good, and I think he's going to take that spot back at some point, you know. But whether he does or whether he doesn't, he'll be a big factor in the Bears offense.
And some great players who used to play here, and we saw on Thursday night some players who have a chance to be great really step up in some big spots. Congrats on a great win. Enjoy the off week. Next game is 2 weeks from today, September 17th at Cowboy Stadium against University of North Alabama, the Lone Star Conference Football Festival. Off week next week, but we're back with another edition of the Chris Thomsen Show. For the coach and for Austin, I'm Grant. Thanks for watching.